do smrti. Smrt su stave moje. Smrt do smrti.
We're back in Bosnia. Today we will explore the site of the Battle of the Wounded at Neretva River, which took place in early March 1943. So I'm a bit late with this one. The video is dedicated to the upcoming 81st anniversary of defeat of fascism in Europe and to the courageous fight of Yugoslav partisans under the command of Marshal Tito. The mobilization among Yugoslav communists began in early April 1941, when Germany and its allies invaded Yugoslavia. By early fall 1941, large areas of western Serbia around the town of Užice were liberated by the partisans. In November of 1941, under heavy pressure from the Axis, partisans were forced to retreat from Užice into the mountains of Bosnia and Montenegro. The struggle against the occupiers continued throughout Yugoslavia, disrupting German plans. The partisan activities prevented Berlin from freely extorting Yugoslavia's natural resources and continuously having to deploy units into the region. The Stalingrad was unraveling, and the Axis suffered blowbacks in northern Africa. Hitler feared that Yugoslavia was ripe as a possible site of Allied Second Front.
Ako panem u mraku, prenesi živima pozdrav. Prenesi
In the late 1942, Hitler issued a directive ordering destruction of, quote, Serbian conspirators, end quote. In January 1943, Germans, Italians, and their Ustashi and Chetnik lackeys launched Operation Vice, aiming to drive partisans from the areas of western Bosnia. Partisan stronghold of Bihać fell in late January 1943. Partisans retreated toward eastern Bosnia. Tito had about 20,000 men. The retreat was also complicated by 3,500 wounded soldiers that needed to be evacuated, as well as about 40,000 civilians who fled western Bosnia with the partisans. Following the initial success of Operation Weiss, German generals Luthers and Lohr ordered mass terror against the civilians, murdering thousands. On February 9th, 1943, partisans launched counterattack in Hinter Dalmatia, disrupting German supply lines of raw materials needed for war industry. Partisans were able to advance toward Neretva River Valley, taking control of town of Jablanica. So, by late February, Axis were able to push partisans against the western bank of Neretva, trapping most of the wounded fighters and civilians. And yet, Marshal Tito outsmarted the Germans. He ordered the destruction of bridges over Neretva, tricking Germans into believing that he planned to march his partisan troops into central Bosnia. Much of the forces on the eastern bank of Neretva were transferred to hit partisans' supposed maneuver inland. On the night of March 7th, a small group of partisans crossed over the remnants of the destroyed railroad bridge at Jablanica, eliminating small Chetnik force guarding the area. A makeshift crossing was quickly constructed, allowing for the partisan units, the wounded, and the civilians to cross onto the other side of Neretva. By March 9th, the operation concluded. Frustrated General Lohr reported to Führer, quote, the partisans succeeded in crossing the Neretva and in withdrawing down to the last man, to the northern part of Montenegro. They broke through the section of the front held by the Italians and Chetniks. There is no booty or captured, not a single wounded partisan, Not even a dead one has been found. End quote. Marshal Tito later summed up the outcomes of Neretva evacuation. Quote, "The plans of the Supreme Headquarter has been carried out. The fourth offensive had failed. The design of encircling our free territory and destroying our forces had not succeeded, thanks to the counter-maneuvers by our shock groups at Neretva River and Gomi Vakuf. The wounded were saved. Draže Mihailovich was liquidated, where he had gained the strongest positions in Montenegro, Sanjak, and Herzegovina. Since then, he has represented nothing in the military sense and has shown his cards politically. The result was that a British mission arrived at our headquarters and the Allies began sending supplies to our People's Liberation Army." End quote. Today's small museum retelling the story of the battle functions at the site of the Neretva crossing in the town of Jablanica. The stop at the museum would be a treat for anyone interested in the history of Yugoslavia and World War II. Stay tuned for more travel videos from obscure and less known destinations.